Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Blazing. I'm the Director of Outdoor Ministry and Youth Leadership. And I would love to share with you today our theme verse for the summer at Spirit in the Pines Camp, which is 1 John 1:7. And it says, "But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, then we have fellowship with one another." And I'm kind of working on how we're going to unpack that for campers and kind of what it means. And so I want to share with you a little bit of what I was thinking about that today. And it reminded me of something my spiritual director said. She said this to me in our last session, that a spiritual practice is really nothing special. It's just an ordinary activity, but done with a particular intention. An intention to be present to yourself, to God, and your world. And so you could meditate, but if you weren't being present, you wouldn't get something spiritual out of it necessarily. Or like a bike ride. I love biking to work. To St. Andrew here, it takes me about 30 minutes. And she's like, on your bike ride, you could just be biking, and your intention is to get from point A to point B and get some exercise. Or it could be to be aware of yourself and God and everything around you. And so I was thinking about that and thinking about walking in the light, and how I think that walking in the light is having that spiritual intention, and being aware and open to what God might be saying to you. And so a good story I have about this, as another way of kind of saying the same thing, is back when I was a youth minister, one of my favorite things to do was to have my youth groups go on walks. And so this one time we were going to go ice skating as our youth group activity, and the rink was only about a mile or so from the church. And so I actually had them meet at the church first, and we walked to the ice rink instead of just parking at the ice rink. And before we left, I said, on this walk, all I want you to do is just pay attention and see if there's anything you notice that you might not have noticed if we were driving. And maybe not, there will be something from God for you in that noticing. And so when we got there, I asked them if anybody had noticed anything. And this one 8th grade boy said, "I noticed a Target bag caught in a tree." And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. Was there anything about that stood out to you?" And he said, "Well, actually, I also noticed that there was a little bird's nest behind it." And even though, plastics are bad and we don't want to, keep ruining our oceans and everything, I felt like, this was the 8th grade boy speaking, I felt like what God was saying to me was that even when we're on our way and we're not quite there yet in helping our planet and we still have plastics, God is using them in a way that makes something beautiful. Like the bird had a little bit of shelter that it wouldn't have otherwise had. And that story has stuck with me because that's a little bit of theodicy, just on a short walk. And, God does make things beautiful even when we are living imperfectly. He is the one that makes everything right, and brings it all together for the good in some ways that we see, in some ways that we don't. But when we set that intention to be paying attention to what God might be saying, we're able to see more of those things that God is doing. So walk in the light this week. Thanks.